our first concern is preventing injury or loss of life. So I want to be very clear in calling upon the Egyptian authorities to refrain from any violence against peaceful protesters.
Officers forcibly arrested more than 70 people during the latest Occupy Wall Street protest. Since the start of the movement, nationwide protests have faced numerous cases of police crackdowns with batons and tear gas often used to break up crowds.
The people of Egypt have rights that are universal.
Since September, some 6,700 Americans protesting against economic inequality and corporate greed have been arrested and silenced.
That includes the right to peaceful assembly and association, the right to free speech, and the ability to determine their own destiny.
A police offensive aimed at crushing Occupy Wall Street has succeeded in shattering America's globally marketed brand of freedom.
These are human rights, and the United States will stand up for them everywhere.
What it's made people realize is the kind of devastating state of our ability to be in a place of dissent in America, and how challenged that is and how oppressed that is. And I think people thought they were freer to dissent and protest until they tried to.
I also call upon the Egyptian government to reverse the actions that they've taken to interfere with access to the internet, to cell phone service, and to social networks that do so much to connect people in the 21st century. At the same time, those protesting in the streets have a responsibility to express themselves peacefully.
The Federal Restricted Buildings and Grounds Improvement Act, known as H.R. 347, is a law most Americans don't know about, but you don't have to do a lot to feel its force.
We represent people who are charged with felony offenses solely because they put up posters, they put up signs asking people to join in demonstrations, and they've been arrested by the police, detained, held on $25,000 bail, and charged with felonies.
Violence and destruction will not lead to the reforms that they seek.
U.S. lawmakers are tightening up. Recent act amendments include prohibiting protests around the White House and broader language to make arrests and prosecution easier.
I think that this is a specific response to sort of the fear that we are actually going to be effective in, transforming the political landscape.
But we've also been clear that there must be reform. Political, social, and economic reforms that meet the aspirations of the Egyptian people.
Katie Davison was arrested twice last year while taking part in legal, non-violent Occupy Wall Street demos in New York.
I feel like we are living in an authoritarian government. Here we sort of sprinkled democratic, words all over everything as if, we have all these freedoms that we actually don't.
A new reality where it's feared that just about any American engaging in political protests can be prosecuted.
It's an outrageous affront to civil liberties and the First Amendment. And I personally have been arrested several times protesting that have been misdemeanors and now would be a felony. And it's just unconscionable that the Congress passed.
In the absence of these reforms, grievances have built up over time.
America's Congress, notoriously known for its bickering, ironically reached consensus when it came to clamping down on constituents. Only 3 elected officials voted against expanding federal restrictions on protests.
When President Mubarak addressed the Egyptian people tonight, he pledged a better democracy and greater economic opportunity. I just spoke to him after his speech, and I told him he has a responsibility to give meaning to those words, to take concrete steps and actions that deliver on that promise. Violence will not address the grievances of the Egyptian people.
While U.S. leaders can't resolve issues like national debt and homelessness, they're all on the same page when it comes to how to handle all those citizens flooding the streets to demand change and accountability.
And suppressing ideas never succeeds in making them go away. What's needed right now are concrete steps that advance the rights of the Egyptian people, a meaningful dialogue between the government and its citizens, and a path of political change that leads to a future of greater freedom and greater opportunity and justice for the Egyptian people. Now, ultimately, the future of Egypt will be determined by the Egyptian people. And I believe that the Egyptian people want the same things that we all want: a better life for ourselves and our children, and a government that is fair and just and responsive.
While U.S. leaders can't resolve issues like national debt and homelessness, they're all on the same page when it comes to how to handle all those citizens flooding the streets to demand change and accountability.
Now, going forward, this moment of volatility has to be turned into a moment of promise.